Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a world that almost was our version of our planet where the map of South Asia looks, well, a bit too crowded. Imagine this. It's the 15th of August, 1947. But instead of flags rising over India and Pakistan and eventually Bangladesh, there's just one enormous, humming, chaotic, multi-religious, multi-linguistic behemoth, a united India. You're standing on a Delhi rooftop under a flickering street lamp. Below, a million people are cheering, but not just in Hindi or Bengali. You hear Sindhi, Pashto, Assamese, Baluchi, and a dozen others unfiltered, overlapping, raw. There's no Radcliffe line, no cross-border trains packed with terrified families, no new capitals carved overnight, just one India. But not the one you know. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me where in the world are you listening from and what time is it over there. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You squint at a newspaper boy, shouting headlines in the rain. Unified Cabinet drafts first constitution, it says, next to a cartoon of Nehru juggling state borders. And yeah, he probably needs a third hand, because without partition, there's more land, more people, and way more political weight to carry. Here's what you notice first. The map is massive. India stretches from the icy peaks near Kabul to the swamps of the Sundarbans, from the deserts of Balochistan to the tea estates in Sylhet. That's nearly 2 million square miles of geopolitical, stress-spicy, heavily spiced stress. And yet, for a flickering moment, it feels like a sunrise with potential. There are no refugee caravans trundling toward arbitrary borders, no hurried mass exchange of populations, no overnight enemies made of former neighbors. Instead, there's a tense, hopeful buzz. People stay with their languages, their gods, their favorite market stalls, and, most importantly, their histories intact. But don't relax just yet, because that no partition dream, it comes with nightmarish administrative side quests. You follow a young bureaucrat, let's call him Vishal, as he trudges through corridors of paperwork in Calcutta. He's trying to issue national identity documents that work for a Pathan goat herder in Khyber and a Tamil poet in Madurai. His assistant just spilled chai on a stack of Urdu language land deeds. Somewhere in the distance, someone's loudly demanding to be recognized as a special autonomous linguistic province. Historians still argue whether this theoretical India would have leaned more federalist, giving each province breathing room or gone full central authority. Either way, you smell the ink drying on 1,000 legal drafts. The constitution that you know, secular, democratic, somewhat socialist, still happens, but it gets longer. A lot longer. Probably with extra clauses about joint river management councils and interstate language arbitration tribunals. Fun fact, in this reality, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, the Iron Man of India, doesn't just merge princely states. He now has to negotiate with Karachi's business elites and Dhaka's fishing guilds. One meeting at a time, his mustache twitches with stress. Meanwhile, in this united space, Gandhi lives a little longer. Without the deep trauma of partition violence, he continues his quiet resistance campaigns. This time focused on caste reforms and rural land redistribution. You're there, watching him walk barefoot into a textile mill outside Lahore, asking the workers to spin khadi, not just for themselves, but for unity. And here's the twist. The violence doesn't vanish, it shifts. Instead of riots over dividing the land, you get political assassinations and ideological turf wars. Communal tensions still bubble, but they stay localized, burning like bushfires instead of forest infernos. Some towns form peace patrols. Others just pray their school holidays don't get politicized. Oh, and the fringe tidbit of the night? A united India almost certainly means a single national sport. That's right, no bitter cricket rivalries. In fact, imagine Wasim Akram and Kapil Dev on the same bowling squad. History nerds still rule over that simulation game. But unity has its costs. You notice food distribution networks stretch thin. Ethnic pride movements flare up in the far northeast. Politicians with golden tongues from Lahore start rivaling the old Delhi elite. You're not even sure who's in charge of the postal code system anymore. Someone somewhere is debating if Pakistani green should be part of the national flag. And yet, As the camera pans out and the subcontinent lights up under a shared Independence Day sky, you feel it, the hum of something enormous and unfinished, something that could either rise or unravel. You wake up to a thunderstorm over Madras, now called Chennai, of course, but in this alternate India, even names like that hang under political lightning rods. Because after the euphoric flag raising fades, the real drama begins: governance. You find yourself inside the Central Assembly building, not just as an observer, but as a jittery young MP representing the district of Mymensingh, which, in this reality, is still part of the same country as Maharashtra and Multan. Your inbox, or rather overflowing letter tray, includes complaints about goat theft, power outages, wheat subsidies, and whether the national anthem should have a stanza in Punjabi. Every day, the parliament sounds more like a multilingual musical. The Prime Minister rises to speak in English, gets heckled in Bengali, countered in Pashto, and translated midstream by a clerk with a sore throat. You smile, but it's a nervous smile. This is a country of one nation, 20 scripts, and every one of them wants budget allocations. Historians still argue whether this parliament would have collapsed under its own weight or innovated into a uniquely subcontinental form of democracy, kind of multilingual samba of shifting coalitions and improbable alliances. Take, for example, the All India Workers' Progressive Agrarian Union, Northwest, a party that only exists because Baluchi goat herders and Assamese tea pluckers decided they both wanted better irrigation. That's the beauty and absolute bureaucratic nightmare of a democracy this sprawling. And the Congress party? It's not the dominant force, post-independence. It splits into East Congress, South Congress, Border Congress, Muslim League Congress, and one faction that exclusively campaigns on no more mango price inflation. There are so many breakaway groups, you joke, that Parliament could hold a cricket tournament and still need substitute benches. Meanwhile, regional leaders become megastars. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman leads rallies in Dhaka calling for federal resource control. In Karachi, a young Zulfikar Ali Bhutto launches electrification projects, dodging ideological barbs from Delhi elites. Down south, see, Rajagopalachari argues for classical Tamil as an official language, and people listen. In the midst of this political stew, your senses get overwhelmed. There's the scent of spicy samosas sold outside the assembly gates, mixed with thick exhaust from ambassador cars. Overhead, fans spin lazily. You're reading a legislative bill written half in Urdu and half in Sanskritized Hindi, and neither half agrees on the spelling of constitution. Then comes the first real crisis: language. Remember that reality check we promised? Here it is. India, in our timeline, nearly fractured over the attempt to make Hindi the sole national language. But in this version, with Urdu holding strong in the north and Bengali dominating the east, it's a full-blown identity cyclone. Riots break out in Calcutta. Students in Lahore boycott national exams. A poet in Lucknow pens a bitter satire called One Nation, 40 Tongues. And somehow, this ends with Parliament voting to adopt 4 official languages: English, Hindi, Bengali, and Urduand, recognizing 18 others for regional administrative use. Your head hurts just hearing the announcement. But oddly, it works. Kind of. That's the thing about this alternate India. It's messy, but elastic. When things bend, they don't always break. Quirky tidbit for this chapter: a little-known campaign launched in the 1950s tries to create a national dress that can satisfy all regions. The final design? A kurta vest fusion with adjustable sleeves and both a lungi and churidar option. It flops spectacularly. Yet slowly, political rituals take hold. National holidays rotate emphasis to reflect every region. Cabinet positions are doled out like chess pieces. Punjab gets defense, Tamil Nadu gets education, Bengal gets finance. In one particularly bold year, the Home Minister is from Peshawar, the External Affairs Minister from Shillong. You still wonder how it hasn't fallen apart. But maybe that's the point. It's not about perfection, it's about tension held in balance. Outside Parliament, a loudspeaker blares an all-India radio broadcast. It's in Oriya today, part of a new linguistic rotation policy. You don't understand a word, but the melody of it calms you. Somehow, in all this confusion, there's music. So you close your eyes, lean against the cool sandstone of the assembly wall, and think, this government might be loud, chaotic, even absurd, but it's still standing. And that's something no one in 1947 thought possible. The sun rises over Lahore. In this version of India, it's not a foreign city, it's just northwest. A train pulls in from Bombay, a 36-hour crawl that feels like a lifetime. You're in the window seat, staring out at rust-red soil turning into mustard fields and then into chilli plains. Somewhere along the ride, you overheard a man say, "We could have been in Europe by now." He's not wrong to wonder. See, without partition, this India doesn't just keep her land, it keeps her infrastructure. No broken railway lines, no split power grids, no halted canals. It's like one massive circulatory system that keeps on pumping uninterrupted from Kashmir to Chittagong. You step off the train and smell ghee and diesel in the air. Lahore's streets are busy but not congested. The Grand Trunk Road has been expanded, lined with neon signs and hand-painted trucks that read, "Unity is strength" in 3 languages. This city, once destined to become the heart of Pakistan, is now the industrial artery of northern India, and it's booming. Historians still debate whether Lahore or Delhi would have emerged as the true capital of commerce. With no border-choking trade, cities like Karachi, Dhaka, and Amritsar develop in symphony rather than rivalry. Imagine Bombay's financial clout blended with Karachi's seaport and Dhaka's textile muscle. Now throw in the mineral riches of Balochistan and the tea from Assam. Economically speaking, this India is a beast. And you feel it in the air, this low, thrumming hum of productivity. Steel plants rise outside Rawalpindi, shipyards in Chittagong construct ocean freighters, the textile mills in Kanpur churn 24/7, sending denim to Detroit and saris to Sao Paulo. It's not perfect, of course. Balancing development is like feeding a hydra. As soon as you fix one region's irrigation, another demands a dam. There are grumblings in the far northeast. Locals claim their bamboo forests are being stripped to build furniture for Delhi's elite. Coastal farmers in Sindh say they're being taxed for grain that ends up in Gujarati warehouses. It's a web of growing pains. But this version of India has something precious: market scale. You walk through a garment factory and see labels in 5 languages. A manager explains how their clothes are cut in Dhaka, dyed in Varanasi, and sold in Kabul. They call it the unity loop. You just nod, trying to absorb it all. Oh, and here's a curious little tidbit. A government-funded scheme in the 1960s tried to standardize electrical socket designs across the whole country. No more adapters. The project almost bankrupted the Bureau of Standardization but succeeded. Today, no matter where you go in this mega India, your plug fits. Glorious. But even greater than trade or transport is energy. Remember, without partition, the Indus River system stays under unified control. That means no international water disputes, no treaty headaches, no tit-for-tat dam building. Instead, a national water commission is formed, and you're there at its ribbon cutting. Hydroelectric plants rise in Himachal. Canals snake through the Punjab, feeding millions of acres. And that's where it clicks. Food. A green revolution still happens, but sooner. Why? Because more land equals more pilot zones. Bengali agronomists test varieties of seeds in Punjab, while Sindhi engineers build weather sensors for Tamil rice paddies. In this reality, India doesn't just feed herself, she becomes an exporter of food security. Still, not everything scales beautifully. With bigger industry comes bigger unions and strikes. Miners in Jharkhand walk out over safety protocols. Port workers in Karachi shut down an entire trade week demanding pension reform. And Delhi, the capital, remains tense, its wide roads filled with protest marches in every dialect under the sun. But this isn't a failure. It's democracy, just louder and dustier. And it works because of one thing: mobility. You hop a flight from Calcutta to Quetta. Yes, there are direct flights, and the flight attendant offers you tea with jaggery or saffron milk. This country feels less like a puzzle and more like a patchwork quilt. Colorful, fraying at the seams, but stitched with care. You land in Quetta. There's a festival happening. Something old, Zoroastrian roots, perhaps. A young girl offers you a sweet made from pistachio and honey. You ask what language she speaks. She says, Hindi, but my dad speaks Brahui. and I learned Bangla in school. Your head spins, but your heart feels full. This is an India where infrastructure isn't just roads and rails. It's people connected, in transit, constantly shifting, constantly learning. And all of it somehow functioning on a schedule, scribbled in 5 scripts on the back of a chai menu. The monsoon hits hard this year. You're in Dhaka now, wading through a narrow alley that smells like jackfruit and old paper. In this India, Dhaka isn't a capital city of another country. It's just another eastern jewel, full of moss-covered colonial facades and students huddling under umbrellas outside roadside tea stalls. You're here for one reason: to see what education looks like in this sprawling, undivided republic. It starts with a question whispered across chalkboards from Lahore to Lucknow. How do you educate 500 million people who speak dozens of languages and have wildly different concepts of history? Turns out, in this India, school books are a battlefield. You're sitting in on a curriculum meeting at the National Council of Unified Education. A Bengali historian insists that Rabindranath Tagore be placed at the center of moral philosophy classes. A Sindhi board member counters with Shah Abdul Latif Bittai. The Marathi delegate sighs, then proposes a new elective: regional thought, leaders of the Indian ethos. Everyone claps, nothing gets decided. Historians still argue whether this educational model strengthened national unity or diluted cultural memory. After all, how do you create a shared identity when the average 12-year-old is learning Persian couplets in literature class and solving math problems written in Malayalam? You're handed a textbook. It's heavy. The title: History of the Indian Subcontinent. Unified Threads, Diverging Paths. The table of contents includes the Mauryas, the Mughals, the Gupta cosmology, and oddly cattle taxation under Rajput rule. The quirky part: every student is required to learn at least 2 other regional scripts by the time they turn 14. So in Jodhpur, kids might read Devanagari and Gurmukhi. In Hyderabad, it's Urdu and Telugu. You remember struggling with cursive and can't help but feel a little embarrassed. But this alternate India doubles down on literacy. Instead of launching 3-language policies that barely get enforced, it builds mobile libraries that tour rural Assam and Baluchistan alike. Kids rush out of thatched huts and desert tents to borrow picture books, graphic novels, and handing story scrolls about mythical queens and calculating merchant kings. Universities, meanwhile, are bursting with ambition. Calcutta Technical University merges with Lahore's premier engineering school to form the South Asian Institute of Innovation. They call it the Brain Belt. You attend a guest lecture on quantum computing that starts with an anecdote about Aryabhata and ends with a quote from a Tamil poet. It's heady stuff, but the real shift comes with globalization. In the 1980s, India opens its markets earlier than in our world, thanks to combined pressure from industrialized port cities like Chittagong, Bombay, and Karachi. International tech companies flock to Bangalore, yes, but also to Rawalpindi and Guwahati, drawn by cheap land, multilingual talent, and one simple policy: education first, export second. By the 2000s, Indian teens are coding in Python while texting in 5 languages. There's a national quiz show called Smartest Bharat, hosted from Hyderabad, simulcast with subtitles in 18 languages. You watch an episode where the winner answers a calculus question while sipping sugarcane juice, and wonder if this is what a superpower looks like. But the system isn't flawless. Students in Kashmir protest the over-centralization of curriculum. Rural schools in Sindh report absentee teachers. And in central Bihar, outdated test papers still arrive in bullock carts. It's a reminder that scale has its shadows. Still, there's something different here. An ambition in the air. A belief that every village kid with a slate and a dream might one day run a ministry, a startup, or a space program. And yes, there is a space program, but you're not there yet. You leave Dhaka late one night, your notebook full of half-translated poems, half-baked policy ideas, and one scribbled phrase. A mind stretched by multiple alphabets never snaps back. Outside, kids chase fireflies down a muddy road. A street lamp flickers. You whisper to yourself, in this India, knowledge isn't just power, it's identity, weapon, and wish. And somehow, everyone's still reaching for more. You're somewhere above the Deccan Plateau now, flying low in a 2-engine prop plane that hums like an old refrigerator. Below, the land rolls in ochre waves, patches of millet, turmeric, and solar panels stretching into the haze. Your seatmate, a retired government planner from Nagpur, sips his masala soda and grins. You're heading to the belly of it all now, power politics and petroleum diplomacy. You're landing in Hyderabad, not just a city of biryani and pearl bazaars, but the new administrative capital of a republic that needed something neutral. See, Delhi got too crowded, Lahore too symbolic, and Hyderabad smack in the middle, cosmopolitan yet quiet, not too north, not too south. So here it is, the technocratic heart of a nation trying to steer itself through the Cold War while juggling oil deals, defense alliances, and internal balancing acts that would make a Cirque du Soleil juggler sweat. The first thing you notice in this city is the bilingual signage, Urdu and Telugu, side by side like an arranged marriage that ended up working just fine. Government buildings gleam with sandstone facades and solar roofs. Bureaucrats in khadi cotton suits walk briskly, clutching files and steel tiffins. You're here to understand, how does this version of India govern itself? Well, it's complicated. The Lok Sabha still exists, but it's bigger, much bigger, almost 200 seats now, thanks to a population that dwarfs anything else on earth. There's no upper and lower India anymore, just a single nation with 35 states and 6 autonomous cultural zones. You read about these zones in a dusty pamphlet, protected regions where tribal governance models coexist with federal oversight. One of them, in Arunachal Pradesh, elects a rotating council of shamans, scientists, and solar engineers. Try wrapping your head around that. Historians still argue whether this decentralized model saved the republic or slowed it down. After all, local governments control everything from school menus to surveillance budgets. On the plus side, things feel closer to the ground. On the downside, you now have 35 variations of how to apply for a passport, and none of them involve standing in the right queue. And then there's the big one, religion. Without partition, India doesn't lose 30% of its Muslim population to a newly formed neighbor. Instead, it embraces or tries to embrace the reality of being the world's largest multi-faith democracy. Mosques in Peshawar echo alongside temples in Madurai. Friday prayers and Sunday sermons are broadcast on national radio right after the morning classical music program. But harmony isn't automatic. You walk past a faded mural in Hyderabad's old quarter showing a crescent moon and a lotus tree entwined. A man tells you it was painted after the winter of 1952 when a religious procession turned tragic in Multan, sparking unrest that almost split the republic. The compromise? A charter of faith co-authored by poets, jurists, and linguists enshrining not just religious freedom but religious fluency. Today, every civil servant must pass a cultural competency exam on at least 3 major faiths before they can serve. A quirky tidbit? The Ministry of Culture once proposed a national spiritual uniform, a sort of stitched patchwork robe with symbols from all Indian religions. It looked hideous. Thankfully, it was shelved after one trial event, where a Jain monk fainted from polyester heat stroke. But politics here aren't just about symbols, they're about survival. You attend a parliamentary session. The air is thick with debate and ceiling fans. A woman from Mizoram argues for ecological credits. A fishermen's union from Kerala demands new export laws. A Tamil MP recites an old Sangam poem before suggesting digital-free zones. The speaker bangs her gavel. Democracy here isn't a clean machine. It's a brass band, loud, offbeat, yet moving forward. And in the background, the Cold War looms. You read about it in a museum exhibit titled India and the World, The Untied Alliance. Unlike our timeline, this India doesn't lean hard toward the USSR. Why? Because Karachi and Chittagong push maritime trade with the West. Bombay's elite fund liberal arts programs modeled after Ivy Leagues. And a tech alliance called South Asia Net emerges, linking Bangalore, Colombo, and Yangon through fiber optics and shared patents. This India is not non-aligned, it's multi-aligned, and that gives it leverage. During the 1973 oil crisis, India brokers a fuel deal with Iran, leveraging cultural ties through Lahore and strategic diplomacy via Hyderabad. It works. Gas prices dip. Infrastructure spending spikes. You hear someone joke, Hyderabad doesn't sleep, it just moves its meetings to a different time zone. As you walk out of the ministry building, the evening call to prayer rises softly above the traffic. You pause. In this India, the question isn't who holds power, but rather, how do we hold this all together without falling apart? And the answer, for now, seems to be layer by messy, glorious layer. You're heading west now, past the Vindhya ranges and the salt plains of Kutch, toward the economic beating heart of undivided India, Mumbai. Or as some still call it here, Bombay, the city that never stops bargaining. Your cab driver is chewing pan and listening to a radio program about wheat subsidies. This city, he tells you, makes money in 17 languages before breakfast. You believe him. Billboards flash in Gujarati, Marathi, Bengali, and sometimes Arabic, advertising everything from equity funds to turmeric-based shampoo. In this version of India, the economy didn't just grow, it swelled, bursting out of its colonial corset with all the awkward grace of a teenager trying on tailored clothes. And the key difference? This India had a bigger internal market from the start, a billion-strong economy by 1990, and unified trade routes spanning deserts, deltas, and the Hindu Kush. You stroll through the Bombay dockyards, which now stretch far beyond what you'd expect. In our world, Karachi became Pakistan's port power. But here, both Karachi and Bombay develop in parallel, with Chittagong serving the east and Colombo acting as a southern offshore hub. The result? India becomes the logistical spine of Asia. Historians still argue whether this port network could have thrived under one flag without sparking jealousy between regions. But India manages it the way it seems to manage everything, by rotating benefits. One decade Karachi handles naval manufacturing, the next it's Madras shipping medical devices. You're reminded of a spinning plate act, except each plate is a regional economy and the juggler has a tea break every hour. Inside the Bombay Stock Exchange, you see ticker symbols from Lahore-based agritech firms, Dhaka AI startups, and Jaipur's textile giants. A broker waves at you, grins and shouts, "Want to invest in turmeric futures?" You politely decline. You hop on the Western Rail corridor, rebuilt with maglev tech in the 2030 S, to see how the middle class lives now. It's varied. In Gujarat, they're building vertical farming skyscrapers. In Sindh, solar co-ops fund neighborhood hospitals. There's inequality, sure, but the middle tier is bigger than in our world, driven by a century of labor migration across now borderless zones. Here's the quirky bit. There's a national microloan platform called Chakra, run partly by sadhus and civil engineers. It started in Varanasi and spread like wildfire. People borrow small amounts to start coconut oil distilleries, eco-brick factories, even miniature cinema chains. It's like Shark Tank, but everyone's a cousin and no one's yelling. And speaking of finance, let's talk currency. In this India, the rupaya reigns and it's no longer a lightweight. Instead of splitting into Pakistani rupees and Bangladeshi taka, a unified currency helps create economic consistency. And thanks to early digitization, you visit a Karachi fintech lab that developed biometric ATMs in the 1990s, the rupaya becomes a test case for the International Monetary Fund. Still, there are bumps. Lahore complains about being left out of a semiconductor subsidy scheme, Dhaka's textile unions demand a national minimum wage, and tribal leaders from the northeast stage a hunger strike until their bamboo industry gets carbon credit certification. You find yourself at an economic summit in Pune, seated between a Bhutanese climate activist and a Tamil venture capitalist. The keynote speaker, an economist with a PhD in civic abundance modeling, says, "It's not just GDP, it's GDF, gross domestic flourish." Flourish, huh? Turns out, in this India, the economy isn't just a race to the top. It's a messy, often ridiculous, constantly renegotiated dance across caste, language, geography, and dreams. And yet, somehow, it works. As you ride back toward the Arabian Sea, the skyline blurs into gold. Laundry flaps from glass towers, rice barges unload behind solar cranes. 2 kids play cricket on a rooftop helipad. You smile, thinking how strange it is that something so vast can still feel so local. And then, as the sun slips into the smoggy horizon, your driver asks, "So, you think this India could be a superpower?" You don't answer. Not yet. You're only halfway through. By now, your backpack is heavier with scribbled notes, mango candy wrappers, and folded train tickets. You're tired but curious, because tonight, you're heading east, past the tea gardens of Assam, past Dhaka's tangled bazaars, and into the steamy green glass corridors of education and innovation in undivided India. The train you ride isn't just any train, it's the Nalanda Express, named after the ancient university that once drew scholars from Korea, Tibet, and Persia. Fitting, because the Nalanda of this timeline isn't a ruin, it's been rebuilt. Modern, yes, with oxygen gardens and holographic Sanskrit classes, but still covered in ivy and whispered debates. You arrive in Patna to find a symposium underway. Students in bright kurtas argue over quantum gravity and Mughal agricultural policies. A robotics club from Chittagong is showcasing a coconut harvesting drone. There's even a round table on how to decolonize the periodic table. Yep, this India didn't just preserve its intellectual heritage, it weaponized it gently. Without partition, the brain drain slows. Professors from Lahore, Kabul, and Dhaka remain part of the system. And the system grows dense, an interwoven network of universities, technical institutes, monastic schools, and satellite campuses. By the 1980s, there's a single Ministry of Learning. Its motto? Curiosity has no border. A quirky tidbit. There's a national science holiday every October called Tinker Week, when kids skip regular classes to invent weird things. One 12-year-old once rigged a rickshaw to run on cow laughter. It didn't work, but he still got a medal. But what's truly fascinating is how this India divides excellence without dividing geography. Dhaka becomes a biotech hub, Lahore runs the top quantum research lab in South Asia, Bengaluru, still the IT capital, now shares patents with Peshawar and Kathmandu through a system called Idea Coop. Think intellectual socialism, but with TED Talks and fewer PowerPoint slides. You visit a lab outside Kolkata that's researching neuroplasticity using classical music. The lead researcher, a 72-year-old in a lungai, tells you, "We don't just want to be smart, we want to be wise." Then he hands you a samosa and wanders off to adjust his EEG wires. Historians still argue whether the decentralization of innovation delayed India's tech rise. After all, there's no single Silicon Valley. Instead, there are dozens of grey cities where universities bleed into industry zones and chai stalls host startup pitches. And then there's the thing you didn't expect, universal adult education. In the 1970s, the government launched a sweeping literacy campaign called Project Akshar. But here's the twist, it wasn't aimed just at kids. It offered night classes for adults, taught in rail cars, mosques, temples, and even cricket stadiums. Bollywood backed it with catchy songs like Pado by Pado, Read Brother Read. You can still hear it on late night radio. Today, over 98% of the population can read and write in at least one language, and many can read 2 or 3. You meet a grandmother in Sylhet who's learning coding in Sanskrit just for fun. She also bakes incredible jackfruit cake. And then there's health education. In this timeline, medical schools in Karachi, Pune, and Rangoon all share data through a system called Swasthya Grid. It's helped curb disease outbreaks, spread vaccine literacy, and even develop new treatments based on local flora. That bale fruit tonic your aunt swears by, it's now clinically validated and sold under the brand Bale Well. You walk through a campus in Lucknow where students practice ancient martial arts next to an AI ethics lab. 2 girls are discussing Buddhism and space law while building a biodegradable drone. And suddenly, you feel it. This isn't just education, it's culture, survival, and ambition all woven together. A giant living curriculum designed not just to feed minds, but to free them. As the Nalanda Express hums back into motion, you close your eyes and try to count the ideas you've heard today. You lose track by 50. That's when it hits you. A country that teaches itself relentlessly, that makes curiosity into civic duty. How could it not rise? The question isn't whether this India could become a superpower. The question is, how soon? You're flying now, coasting high above the Deccan Plateau in a solar glider chartered by a university startup. Below, the rivers of central India braid and bend like silver wires in a forgotten drawer. Your next destination, cultural unity, or more specifically, the strange, beautiful, and sometimes awkward cultural kaleidoscope that forms when a subcontinent grows without breaking. From the window, you see hints of how it all stayed together. There's a Sufi music festival in Hyderabad where Bhangra dancers from Punjab are performing. A Buddhist monk from Sikkim is teaching haiku in Tamil Nadu. The official government slogan plastered across rail stations and rice bags is Ekam, Anek, One, Many. In this India, cultural policy isn't about control. It's about curation. Every citizen can choose a regional language to adopt in school, besides their native tongue. You've met Gujaratis who speak Bengali, Sindhis fluent in Assamese, and a Pashto-speaking Kashmiri learning Odissi dance just because it makes her happy. What's quirky is how the postal system became the unlikely guardian of unity. In the 1960s, they launched a program called Pen Across Borders. Every teenager had to exchange monthly letters with a peer from a different linguistic group. Imagine millions of handwritten friendships. Some led to marriages, others to fusion music bands. One pair co-authored a best-selling cookbook called Tandoori Hilsa and Friends. You find yourself at a dhaba near Bhopal, where a mural celebrates the country's most beloved television show, Our Strange Giant Family. It ran for 30 years and followed a fictional household of 32 relatives from across the nation. Storylines included a Jat uncle marrying a Manipur novelist and their multilingual parrot who only curses in Portuguese. No one knows why. Historians still argue whether this cultural fusion delayed the rise of a single dominant narrative, something most superpowers develop. But here, the absence of cultural hegemony seems to be a strength, not a weakness. Because when people see themselves in each other's stories, they don't just tolerate, they borrow and build. At a temple in Madurai, you spot verses in Arabic carved beside Tamil hymns. At a mosque in Rawalpindi, the call to prayer echoes beside a mural of Krishna playing the flute. No, not everyone's happy about it, but the push and pull of tradition and hybridity are what keep the tapestry alive. You attend a wedding in Dhaka where both the groom and bride's families perform dances from each other's state, an expectation now codified into what's known jokingly as the unity clause in modern prenups. One grandma grumbles, "In my day, we didn't do bihu in the barat." Then she joins in anyway. Art thrives in this tangled harmony. You explore a fusion museum in Jaipur housing antique qawwalis about the Mahabharata, miniature paintings of Arctic expeditions, and an underground theatre where performers reenact the Ramayana. Set in a Martian colony, the museum cafe serves beefless burgers with jackfruit bacon and chena cheese. You approve. And food! Oh yes, food becomes the secret diplomacy of unity. Every railway junction has a rotating kitchen where chefs from 3 different regions collaborate on daily meals. Today's thali? Kerala style biryani with mustard chutney from Bengal and Afghani style naan. Tomorrow, who knows? You sit at a street stall in Karachi eating poha with chickpea curry and realize this plate has more geopolitics than some constitutions. And it works. Somehow, the country holds. Not because everything blends into sameness, but because the borders of identity are treated less like fences and more like stages. Places to perform, exchange, and yes, sometimes argue, but always over a cup of tea. As you step into a Delhi metro car, where a Kathak dancer and a Sindhi rapper are filming a TikTok duet, you lean back and sigh. In our world, this level of cultural unity feels like a dream, fragile, overly optimistic. But here, it's mundane, messy, loud, and real. Your next stop isn't marked on any tourist map. You glide into a sleepy riverside town on the banks of the Indus where the past and future seem to overlap. In this reality, the armed forces of undivided India evolved not just into guardians of territory, but architects of regional stability. Tonight, you're walking through the military museums and academies that train the world's most peculiar peacemakers. The first thing you notice is the sheer size of the forces. With no partition, there's no splitting of regiments, arsenals, or border commands. Instead of 3 armies, Indian, Pakistani, and Bangladeshi, there's one, the United Defence Forces of India, UDFI. And their motto? Protect without provocation. That's not to say the military here is soft. Quite the opposite. It's vast, modernized, and deeply integrated into international peacekeeping missions. But there's a shift in tone, in posture. Officers are trained as much in linguistics and anthropology as in artillery. You find a drill sergeant in Agra teaching ancient Tamil proverbs to cadets from Rawalpindi. To lead, he says, you must speak the soul of your people. Mainstream history books often overlook the fact that pre-partition, British India contributed over 2.5 million soldiers to WWII. That martial infrastructure, instead of being split and regionalized, is preserved and reshaped in this timeline. By the 1970s, India has one of the most strategically sophisticated conscription models, combining merit-based officer recruitment with village-level emergency reserves. Quirky footnote: in 1982, they introduced combat yoga as part of infantry training. Laugh all you want, it caught on. NATO even sent observers. There's a statue near Jaisalmer of a Sikh general, a Tamil pilot, and a Rohingya codebreaker. They're all fictional, but composite legends built from dozens of real stories. In this reality, they serve as national icons, symbols of shared defense rather than divided loyalty. And the defense doctrine here? Not a Cold War clone, it's called Kavach Mandal, Shield Circle. The idea is that every state within the Union defends not only its own borders, but also its neighbors. A missile threat to Dhaka is answered just as urgently in Mumbai. Naval officers from Colombo train beside submarine crews from Chittagong. Cross-regional loyalty is a strategy, not a slogan. Historians still argue whether this approach weakened strategic clarity. Without external borders, they say, internal differences could easily become the new battleground. But here, that hasn't happened. Partly because of compulsory peace rotations. Every military officer spends 6 months in a non-native region doing cultural outreach, teaching, rebuilding, learning. You attend a peacekeeping graduation ceremony in Srinagar. The class valedictorian, a Buddhist girl from Nepal, gives her speech in Urdu, thanks her Gujarati drill sergeant, and salutes in Assamese. There's not a dry eye in the hangar. But let's not romanticize. This India isn't conflict-free. There are insurgencies, border flare-ups with China, internal unrest. But with the absence of Pakistan and Bangladesh as separate entities, the most intense and long-running bilateral hostilities simply never exist. Kargil is a training exercise, not a war. The Kashmir conflict, while present, is managed within a constitutional framework of deep regional autonomy backed by legal and cultural safeguards. It's not perfect, but it's ongoing, not explosive. And that means less military expenditure on defense, more on resilience. In this reality, India spends 4% of its defense budget on climate resilience brigades. These forces fight droughts, rebuild after floods, and develop floating barracks for monsoon-affected zones. You visit one in the Sundarbans, where amphibious tanks are planting mangroves. Here's a tidbit you'll love. The Army Marching Band once won a Grammy. Their version of Vande Mataram, performed with a sitar-led jazz trio from Lahore, hit number 4 on the global fusion charts. The album's called Marches and Ragas. Yes, it slaps. And perhaps most compelling of all, you begin to notice that in this world, respect for the military isn't performative, it's integrated. Soldiers aren't placed on pedestals, they're part of the societal weave. A school textbook from Balochistan features a general explaining why rice diversity is key to food security. Another one in Mysore features a colonel sketching wildlife migration routes from memory. You sit by the Indus as dusk falls. Across the water, young cadets practice silent formation drills beneath banyan trees. There's no barking, just rhythm. You start to wonder, maybe, just maybe, an undivided India never needed to prove its power with firepower. It simply needed to show that strength could be shared rather than shown. Now, as your journey nears its end, you find yourself in a glass-domed observation tower above New Delhi. The city has sprawled, but it hasn't choked. In this India, the question we began with, would it have become a superpower, echoes faintly beneath the hum of air filtration units and multilingual elevator chimes. You peer out, not just at a city, but at the heart of a reality that actually worked. And it's not just because of size or scale. You begin to understand that superpower status here doesn't look like what we're used to. No global policing, no flexing aircraft carriers. It's subtler, softer, sleeper cell effective, the kind of power that changes the world while making it think the change was its own idea. Let's talk economics. With no bloody wars of separation, no decades of rearmament, and no refugee crises rerouting national funds, India's GDP growth accelerates by almost a decade. By the early 2000s, this undivided India has already launched a digital ID program tied to a unified trilingual education system and a national basic income test pilot. The startup boom doesn't just happen in Bengaluru, it happens in Lahore, Dhaka, and Guwahati at the same time. Multinational companies love it. One trade deal, one tax structure, one vast labor pool. But what makes it uniquely powerful is its ability to set global norms, not just follow them. For instance, in this reality, India spearheads the Global South Intellectual Commons, a movement where open source knowledge, indigenous innovation, and decentralized tech become tradable commodities. It co-authors protocols on ethical AI, climate migration, and biodegradable data centers. Yes, that's a thing here. And here's your fringe fact for the day. India's fastest supercomputer isn't in a lab, it's on a train. Literally, a pan-subcontinental data center mounted on a rail loop circling the country non-stop, absorbing ambient heat powered by solar tiles on the roof. Its name? Saraswati. Back in your tower, you flip through the day's headlines. A Mars rover team out of Dhaka has discovered microbial signatures. A Gujarati Rohingya co-op has developed rice that grows in salt water. A Punjabi artist is designing carbon-negative fabrics based on lotus stems and goat hair. You sip your spiced green tea and marvel. But power isn't just tech and trade. It's culture, influence, narrative. And in this world, India exports not just movies, but models. The Karachi Consensus replaces the Washington Consensus for developing nations. Instead of austerity and debt traps, it promotes scaled microloans, hybrid barter credit systems, and rotating leadership councils that include artists and philosophers, not just economists. It's weird. It works. Hollywood makes a film about it. Directed by an Assamese woman, narrated by a Marathi-speaking AI. The plot? A fictional version of Steve Jobs who tries to smuggle turmeric tech into Silicon Valley. You'd watch it. Twice. But still, historians argue. They always do. Some say this India grew too quickly. Others say it's unity masked regional resentment that's waiting to erupt. Some worry its decentralization might lead to creeping irrelevance on the world stage. There's even a faction that insists that a smaller, more fragmented India would have played the global game more effectively. But you, standing here, watching the sun set over an unbroken landmass of 2.1 billion humans, mostly arguing about what type of mango is best, you feel the stillness of something earned. Superpower? Maybe. Perhaps not in the way analysts measure it. But in the small things, like who writes tomorrow's textbooks, whose stories fill the world's dreams, whose festivals are live-streamed on Martian colonies, this India has become inevitable. You step outside into the warm night air. A child in a sari asks you for directions in Marathi-accented Urdu. You fumble. She giggles, switches to English. "No problem, uncle," she says, before skipping off toward a fleet of self-driving cycle rickshaws shaped like peacocks. And at that moment, you realize you're not just in another country. You're in another future. You find yourself drifting, now, through the spice-scented air of Kolkata's tech hub district, where history wears digital robes. In this timeline, data is the new cotton, ubiquitous, contested, valuable, and India, unified and relentless, has learned how to spin it like silk. Let's rewind for context. Back in the late 20th century, even the real-world version of India was making a name in software. But here, undivided and unencumbered, India didn't just become a tech service provider. It became a data ethicist, a platform builder, and, in one unexpected turn, the custodian of humanity's collective memory. It began subtly. Rural broadband rolled out not just in Tamil Nadu or Maharashtra, but across Thar, Sylhet, and the Chittagong hill tracts. Instead of leapfrogging from landline to smartphone, this India launched something called Jangyan, People's Knowledge, an AI-driven public network built on linguistic plurality, community moderation, and solar microgrids. Think Wikipedia, but narrated by your grandmother, and taught to you through myth, music, and memes. In this version of reality, India doesn't chase Silicon Valley. It reimagines the internet itself, not as a tool of distraction, but as a repository of regional wisdom. Here's a strange, charming twist. The most searched topic on IndiaNet in 2023, how to dye silk using turmeric and mango bark. Yes, even in a super data future, people still want that soft yellow. Second place, ghost stories from the Bengal famine retold by AI griots. Naturally. And just when you think this world couldn't get more layered, you learn about the data temples. They're real in Jaipur, Gwalior, and Dhaka. Vast sandstone libraries powered by quantum cooling towers designed to store ancestral audio memories, voice recordings, family recipes, lullabies, regional dialects. People come to sit in echo domes and listen to their great-grandmother explain how to pickle jackfruit. Who needs TikTok? Meanwhile, Indian universities offer full degrees in digital ritual studies. Students learn how to code with rhythm, build UIs inspired by Mughal latticework, and debate whether avatars can inherit karma. Historians still argue whether this spiritual tech fusion is regressive romanticism or the next phase of post-human storytelling. But in this India, no one's too fussed. They're too busy building. Tech firms from Kolkata merge with sustainability startups in Islamabad. Dhaka becomes the global center for green blockchain. Lahore launches a memory curation app called Yaad Memory that syncs with wearable jewelry made of local stone. Your hotel lobby features a 3D printed sculpture of Rabindranath Tagore made entirely from compressed digital dust, actual archived metadata from 5 million poems. The plaque says, "He dreams in every dialect." Power in this timeline isn't about how fast your chip is, it's about how many cultures your code can carry. Global digital ethics are shaped not by West Coast programmers but by Indian archivists, linguists, and philosophers. In 2029, this India co-authors the AI Compassion Treaty, a binding agreement mandating empathy training for all autonomous systems. The preamble is written in Pali, Urdu, and Assamese Braille. Siri weeps quietly. But the quirkiest gem? In a research center in Lucknow, an AI named Kabir 2.0 is trained solely on bhajans, street gossip, Bollywood trivia, and 14th century Sufi poetry. When asked what love means, it replies, "A 7-spice dish that your mother never measures. You almost choke on your masala chai." And what about social media? It exists, but different. No doom scrolling, no rage bait. The top platform is called Saath, Together. You earn credibility by being boringly consistent, not loud. Users rate posts on sooth factor and wisdom per byte. You post a photo of your shadow on an old brick wall in Patna, and it goes viral because it reminds people of water buffaloes and Sunday naps. In the end, you realize India didn't dominate the tech world by racing the fastest. It won by dreaming the widest. And now, as you stroll through the open-air quantum campus in Odisha, where the labs are circular, the coffee is spiced with tulsi, and the interns meditate before debugging, you start to feel the difference. This isn't just a high-tech India. This is an India that remembered its stories, then encoded them for the stars. You're in Mumbai now, or rather, Greater Bombay, a coastal mega region stretching from Karachi to Kochi, its edges glazed with salt air and distant temple bells. The skyline flickers like a crown of molten silver under monsoon clouds. But tonight, the mood isn't one of grandeur. It's reflection. You lean on the curved rail of a skytram, cruising past glistening towers made of algae glass and temples where digital deities shimmer like heat waves. Below, a park hums with a night yoga class, hundreds of people breathing together under bioluminescent banyans. Here it is, the superpower, but not the kind you expected. No massive armies marching in lockstep, no declarations of ideological supremacy, just people, millions of them, living across shared dreams, stitched borders, and softly recycled myths. And yet, make no mistake, India is mighty. Its navy patrols a peace corridor from Africa to Indonesia. Its climate dome initiatives have reversed desertification in Balochistan. Its currency, the Shakti, anchors nearly half the global south. And its carbon-negative cities are studied by architects from Copenhagen to Kyoto. Still, what makes it powerful isn't scale, it's intention. Instead of rewriting its past, this India healed it. A long, slow healing. With mango pickles and archived folktales, with apology festivals and truth trails, with interfaith music composed for dawn trains. One popular theory suggests this united India never needed a singular vision of itself. It thrived on contradictions. It never solved every argument. It just made sure there was room for everyone at the debating table, even if someone occasionally brought a tabla. You pass a billboard floating above the highway. It reads, Azadi means your neighbor's story matters too. Historians still argue whether any of this could have happened, whether the violence of partition was inevitable, whether colonial scars run too deep. Whether a country this big, this complex, can ever truly function as one. But tonight, on this tram, you don't feel doubt. You feel hum, resonance, the idea that a subcontinent could remain intact, not as a relic, not as an empire, but as a choreography of dreams, feels not just plausible, but inevitable. Like gravity, or monsoons, or the smell of fresh cardamom after rain. You close your eyes. In your ear, an old Bollywood song plays from someone's window, echoing softly through the tunnels. It's about longing, about return. You don't catch the lyrics, but you know what it means. You've come home, and now, as the rain begins to whisper along the edge of your window, let's let everything soften. The tram slows. The skyline fades into a gentle smear of golden mist. Far below, someone lights incense. Maybe sandalwood, maybe jasmine. The scent rises like a memory you forgot you had. Take a long breath. Let your shoulders fall. Your hands rest. You've wandered through a country that never split, yet somehow never fractured. You've stood in the cool shadows of ancient step wells turned into data farms. You've watched school children paint satellites with turmeric dye. You've heard languages that never vanished and seen borders that never hardened. You've eaten imaginary mangoes, floated down silk rivers, and listened to lullabies in 100 accents, none of them strange. What a strange, lovely place to drift through. No battles to win, no perfect ending to chase, just wonder and warmth, and the slow exhalation of a place that chose to mend, not divide. Maybe this India couldn't exist in our world, or maybe it already does, in scattered fragments, in shared meals, in remembered stories whispered between generations, in the way a sari folds, in the pause before a prayer. So now, let yourself drift. Let your thoughts blur like watercolor in the rain. Let the world dim into quiet colors, soft footsteps, the low rumble of a train heading somewhere familiar. You're safe here. Tomorrow can wait. Tonight, let your dreams carry you through a land that never cracked apart, but bloomed. And as always, I'll be here, gently folding time, story by story, until you drift off again. Good night.